the summer of 2000, CBS premiered their new show Survivor, unaware that they were about to change television forever. Survivor was a cultural phenomenon and a ratings juggernaut that captivated audiences with its then unique blend of reality television and game show competition. America had seen reality shows and had seen game shows, but had never seen something that blended the two together quite like this. Sure, there had been other reality competition shows before it, like MTV's Real World Road Rules Challenge, but nothing came close to matching the scale of Survivor's popularity. As it often goes in television, by the time the next summer came around, it felt like every network was looking to capitalize on the success of Survivor and create their own reality competition show. From ABC's The Mole, to VH1's Band on the Run, to Fox's Murder in Small Town X, to Fox's Boot Camp, to Fox's Love Cruise.
Oh, the network slogan is true. Watch Fox and be damned for all eternity.
Everyone was trying to get in on the action, including the perpetually struggling UPN Network. In 2001, they launched their own attempt at the genre with Manhunt. Knowing they were in desperate need of their own Survivor-level hit, UPN was hell-bent on making sure Manhunt was a successful reality show, even if they had to fake it.
It's still real to me, damn it!
Manhunt followed a group of players as they trekked through a 50-mile course in a Hawaiian jungle, all while avoiding hunters armed with paintball guns. If a player is hit 3 times during the competition, they're eliminated from the game. Also, at the end of every day, players must vote one of their own into a sudden death capture the flag type game against the hunters called the Gauntlet. If those players are hit just once, they're also eliminated. There could be only one winner, and the reward for them was a prize of $250,000. I will say there's a lot more rules to the game, but I pared it down to the most basic stuff you need to know. Now, most people said Manhunt was inspired by The Most Dangerous Game, but real sickos like me will say it's inspired by the Jean-Claude Van Damme movie Hard Target. Sadly, they couldn't get Lance Henriksen or Arnold Vosloo for the show, but still the hunters for the game are a trio of recognizable faces. Clyde Miller from Baywatch plays the hunter Koa, former American Gladiator Ray Hollett, aka Zap, played Rain, and rounding up the cast as the leader Big Tim was a then unknown professional wrestler named John Cena. The show was originally set to be produced by WWF chairman and all-around swell human being Vince McMahon, but he pulled their involvement before filming to presumably work on what would become the runaway success that was the XFL. Cena had recently signed with WWF and joined their developmental program in Ohio Valley Wrestling, so I assume his spot in the show was somehow connected to the initial WWF involvement. As for the show itself, it aired for 6 episodes beginning in August of 2001. In researching this video, I watched the entire show, and I gotta say, it's much better than I thought, but it's still not good. In the show, contestants basically have 6 days to travel 50 miles, so a lot of the show is them just sort of walking around. They do have a map to guide them, but there's still plenty of times they find themselves lost or arguing on which way they should go. Those parts of the show are really boring. But the best parts of the show are when that tension finally breaks as the hunters launch one of their sneak attacks. Nearly every hunter attack is peppered with explosions and chaos as the contestants scatter and try to balance helping each other out and saving themselves. During the first episode, a contestant named JK learned that lesson the hard way when her fellow contestants criticized her for not helping her teammate James, who was injured in the skirmish. As a result of her actions, they vote her into the very first gauntlet, where she was promptly eliminated. To add insult to injury, Big Tim takes her ponytail as a trophy. Originally, all the men and women on the show were supposed to be shaved bald after they were eliminated, but according to one of the contestants speaking to the Understood podcast, JK basically told the producer she wouldn't do it, and a compromise was reached.
The contract that we all signed, that we were going to, when we lost, we were going to get, like, women, men, our heads were going to be shaved. Just before we went in, maybe the night before, JK was putting her foot down and she was not going to go in because she did not want to shave her head. And we're all just like, hey, that was the agreement. And so they made it so the girls would just get their ponytails cut off. I'm
going to tell you now, that Understood episode was a great resource for me while researching this. And I urge you to check it out and listen to them cover all of this more in depth. As far as casting goes, I don't think a lot of the contestants were memorable. The only 2 people whose names I can remember without looking at my notes were the 2 guys who took prominent leadership roles. One was a pastor named Jim, and the other was James, an ex-military guy who was the one who got hurt in the first episode. I also remember this guy, just not his name. And I only remember him because of this cringy moment.
What's your name, son?
My name's Joe.
Joe?
But he's such a pretty boy.
Before you do that, look me in the eye and tell me if you think you'd last one day out here in the jungle, because you know you wouldn't, because you have no heart. I've got more heart than all you guys.
As for the hunters, they are great in the way that Samurai Cop is great, in that it's not actually great, but I think it's great. Listen, none of them are getting Emmys for their performances, but John Cena is especially terrible in this. It's crazy to watch Big Tim and realize he will eventually parlay his wrestling career into Hollywood success. Because in Manhunt, he's forced to do a lot of the heavy lifting when it comes to dialogue, and it is not good.
That's fine with me, because now I got his number. Now that's funny to me. But I'm a mountain, immovable, and it's gonna take a whole lot more than fight to win $250,000. Anybody tell these worthless maggots not to litter? No questions about this one. Someone's getting shaved. One thing's for certain. The fun has just begun.
It wasn't just that the hunters were bad at acting, they were also bad at hunting. I don't think Zap is able to hit a single contestant until episode 4. She was so bad at shooting that I spent 20 minutes trying to research how often she manned the assault cannon on American Gladiators before I decided the best thing for my sanity was just to walk away. Of the 3, Cena is probably the best hunter, but I chalk that mainly up to his strategy. Run faster than everyone until he gets right behind someone and shoots them in the butt until he runs out of ammo. Give him the old Robert Ford strategy. After 6 grueling days, a contestant named Nicole is the first to finish and wins. All the previously eliminated contestants came out and celebrated with her as Nicole let them know that she's splitting the prize money with them. We then get a sappy montage of how everyone grew so much as people during this less than a week they were there, and Big Tim and the hunters skulk away into the shadows, hopefully to practice their shooting. The show officially premiered on August 3rd, 2001, and was the 107th most viewed show that week. That's not good. Dude, it lost head-to-head to a repeat episode of Sabrina the Teenage Witch. And not one of the good ones, one of the college episodes that aired on the WB. But it's not like this can get any worse, right?
Wrong, 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 wrong. Wrong, 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 wrong.
As bad as the ratings got, it quickly became the least of UPN's worries, as an avalanche of bad publicity started when one of Manhunt's former producers, Bob Jaffee, alleged that Manhunt was staged. I don't really have a lot of videos or photos of Bob Jaffee other than this one, so instead we're just going to pretend that this is Bob Jaffee. The crux of Jaffee's statements was that the show was directly interfered with and manipulated by UPN. He went so far as to name UPN President Gary Hart and UPN Chairman Kerry McLuggage as people who wanted the game manipulated. According to Jaffee, UPN felt that the show wasn't going as they wanted and asked him to manipulate challenges and fake conflicts. One of the more damning accusations was Jaffee's claim that they strongly suggested to him that it would be great for ratings if a contestant named Mandy was the first one to survive the seemingly impossible gauntlet. In what is probably just a coincidence, Mandy became the first one to survive the seemingly impossible gauntlet. Huh, go figure. This is 100% my opinion, but that really calls into question all the jokes I just made about how bad the hunters were at hunting. It's almost like this would be an incredibly easy game to manipulate. The other major thing Jaffee alleged was that after shooting was finished, UPN wasn't satisfied with what was shot and ordered reshoots. At that point, Jaffee had had enough and quit the show, and kept his mouth shut about it until he began speaking to a reporter named Peter Lance. Lance was running a website called The Stingray and was a bit of a pioneer in reality television reporting. Now, let me quickly put on my beyond belief Jonathan Frakes costume for a second and ask, is this tale of a fake reality show true? Or are we just, no, it's true. I couldn't think of a good pun, so I bailed on the bit. But what Bob Jaffee said, that was mostly true. While I can't speak to the direct involvement of UPN executives in the Gauntlet incident, the reshoots 100% happened. Instead of Hawaii, the reshoots were done in Los Angeles' Griffith Park. All the contestants, except for JK, came to Los Angeles on their own dime for reshoots. They didn't do it out of the goodness of their hearts though. They did it because they were told they would only get their prize money if the show aired, so they better help out. As far as I could ascertain, a lot of the reshoots were either about manufacturing conflict or about making the show easier for viewers to follow. For starters, all those maps you see, yeah, those are fake. Believe it or not, there was not a real Screaming Skull trail. On the island, the competitors used a topographic map, but for TV, they decided just to make fake maps to make it simple for the viewers at home. The other big one was the use of fake confessionals. A lot of the confessionals in Manhunt were filmed months after the show ended. Once you know what to look for, they're easy to spot. As one, they're all basically filmed in the same location. And two, all of a sudden a lot of contestants are conveniently wearing bandanas. That's to hide which contestants were still growing their hair back out after being shaved bald. Jaffee's allegations became a big story, but you have to realize how naive America was at this point. At this time, most people thought reality TV was real. Nobody was aware yet of just how manipulated the genre was. As a country, we still thought Jerry Springer was on the up and up. We didn't realize the fights were done by pro wrestlers.
Man, that shatters my entire universe.
UPN admitted to the reshoots. I mean, they kinda had to because Peter Lance had him dead to rights. But they said nothing they did affected the outcome of the game, and therefore, they did nothing wrong. The allegations were definitely bad for UPN. But it's not like they did anything illegal, right?
Don't you ever get tired of being wrong all the time?
Sometimes.
Remember JK, the first contestant eliminated because she didn't help her teammate? Between the airings of episode 2 and 3, she filed a complaint with the FCC under federal laws 47 USC section 509 and 47 USC section 73-1216, alleging that the game was rigged. According to JK's complaint, after that initial skirmish in episode 1, a producer named Christopher Crow physically held her back and forced her to give an interview. She was prevented from returning to her teammates, who assumed she had deserted the group. She was given no time to explain herself, and that led to her being quickly voted into the gauntlet and eliminated. According to Nicole in the previously mentioned Under Understood podcast, JK had trained for 6 weeks for the show, and when she was eliminated, she was furious. She's apparently still upset about it to this day, and I don't know if you can blame her. Whereas the reshoots for the show could be argued didn't affect the show's outcome, the interference from Crow likely affected JK's outcome. What made this potentially bad for UPN was that there are laws in place that are supposed to prevent this from happening. This is very much the abridged version of the story, but in the 1950s there was a massive quiz show scandal, wherein it was revealed television producers were manipulating their supposedly fair programs by giving the answers to their preferred contestants. The US government investigated and later wrote laws to prevent producers from rigging game shows. JK's letter to the FCC felt that the manipulation of Crow violated those laws. She found support in a second letter by Professor Steve Beverly. Beverly was uniquely qualified as both a noted game show expert as well as a former professional wrestling reporter, meaning he knew a thing or two about rigged outcomes.
It's still real to me, damn it!
This had potential to be bad not only for UPN, but for their parent company Viacom. Viacom also owns CBS, who's having their own bout of bad press. Former Survivor contestant Stacey Stillman had made similar allegations as JK. Whereas JK went to the FCC, Stillman had sued Viacom, alleging that Survivor producer Mark Burnett encouraged a pair of contestants to vote her off in order to keep on a more popular castmate named Rudy. It's bad enough they had their Survivor scandal to deal with, at least that's a hit. Now they had to deal with a dud like Manhunt causing them grief. They began having serious discussion about taking the show off the air. But when episode 3 came in, there was a ray of hope. They say any publicity is good publicity, which might be why ratings went up 40% in the first episode after the scandal broke. Well, as long as nothing bad, it gets worse. At this point, Peter Lance is to UPN what Homer was to the Krusty Burglar.
Stop! He's already dead!
This is the last one, I swear, though in some cases this is the most damning, as Peter Lance interviewed the judge for Manhunt, an ex-Navy SEAL named Shaalan. Hosh only makes one on-screen appearance on the show, but he was also the referee, as well as the one who trained the hunters and contestants. It's through Hash that people were finally able to see just how manipulated Manhunt was. Hash said that the show was lying from the very start. The opening narration of a 50-mile course? That's not true. It was much shorter than that. Oh, and that $250,000 grand prize the winner was gonna get? It wasn't a winner takes all $250,000. It was $250,000 including any money they win along the way. Oh, did I not mention the mini challenges? Yeah, it's because it only happens once during the entire show. Apparently a bunch of them happened, they cut for time, and they didn't even mention that they were happening until the scandal broke and then randomly added a disclaimer in. According to Hash, the producers began getting desperate when they saw just how well everyone in the show was getting along. That's when they started trying to manipulate the game in their favor. Not only did Hash back up JK's claim of unfair treatment, but he went one step further, claiming they tried to directly help a different contestant. One of the unseen ideas was something called an immunity card that would be randomly placed in a random contestant's bag, and whoever got it would be safe from any paintball shots that day. UPN producers asked Hash to randomly place the random card in a random contestant's bag, but then they told Hash, man, how great would it be for the show if Jim was the one who got that card? Despite all that, I think what made Hash the most angry is how the contestants were treated by UPN. Manhunt was a very physical game and numerous players were injured, but especially contestants James and Lucas. UPN refused to pay for any of their medical bills and James was forced to pay for his own surgery. Lucas didn't have surgery, but not because he was healthier, but because he didn't have insurance, so he couldn't afford it. Keep in mind, UPN still basically blackmailed the pair into flying to Los Angeles so they could film John Cena skulking in the woods for hours. The only real defense UPN executives had for their manipulations was their knowledge of a discussion the contestants had about working together and splitting the money. This potential pact made them desperate to take any agency over the show where they could. you're playing a drinking game about how many times you're going to mention that Understood podcast, take another shot now, because the winner revealed that UPN's fears were warranted.
But what they did is they put us on the island together as a cast for like 5 days before we went into the jungle. So we all really got to know each other, and we all liked each other. And I think what we decided was the winner would get half, and then everyone else would split the rest of the prize.
Ultimately, not a lot came out of the Manhunt scandal. The FCC complaints went nowhere, but it's unclear if JK had a case. It seems like the FCC has just chosen not to get involved with reality television if they can help it. Choosing not to push their luck, UPN canceled Manhunt after it finished airing. It disappeared not just from the airwaves, but from the world. For decades, it was considered lost media, until earlier this year when it popped up on the Internet Archive. Luckily, my friend Not That Tom Green pointed me in its direction. Thanks, Tom. Peter Lance continued his career as an investigative journalist, writing several books. Bob Jaffee worked in Hollywood for a few years before moving to Nashville and producing smaller projects from there. John Cena went on to needlessly defend Vince McMahon in interviews. And reality television continued to grow, not only in size, but in influence. Luckily, as the medium has grown, so has our understanding of it. There are obviously exceptions, but most people aren't as naive about reality television as they used to be. It doesn't shock people the same way anymore when they find a reality show fakes something. All it takes now is just some basic media literacy to see just how unreal reality television really is. Except for Bar Rescue, that one's 100% true.
It's still real to me, damn it!
Thanks for watching. These are always awkward, so I'm gonna plow ahead. If you like this video, please subscribe and check out some of the other ones I made. And make sure to go to the description to see where I got some of the information for this video. Once again, I appreciate it.